Grab him a water out of the.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's keynote is with Harish Rao, and it's going to be on what today's COVID-19 crisis means for tomorrow's digital infrastructure. As a last reminder, this is a very difficult year for us. We have lost one of our key members for Drupal GovCon, James King, and we just wanted to spend just a moment again to remember James and the years of service, community, and friendship that he gave to all of us. Today's Friday schedule for the CTAC networking room started this morning with a phase 2 presentation and has continued with presentations throughout the day. Please say hello to our sponsors. Without them, our event wouldn't be possible. You can also check out our BOF schedule on the BOF page on both the website and also on Slack. And don't forget that GovCon2020 Slack has both a job board and a general channel raffle that ends today. So if you want to get one of our t-shirts, please go on and sign up for the raffle. Also, a final reminder, we are enforcing the code of conduct. So if you need a briefer and a refresher, just head back on over there. Closed captions are available in all rooms. Just turn it on and off in your Zoom. Now a word from our sponsors.
Government is changing, and the bar of citizens' expectations is rising. Today, they're looking for more personalized and tailored experiences while interacting with government agencies. At Acquia, we bring digital experiences to life for the world's most ambitious organizations. And we are the only digital experience platform that's made for Drupal. Constituent data and agency applications often live in siloed systems and software applications like a CRM or other legacy database. Acquia integrates these critical systems to help build a 360-degree view of citizens and inform your digital marketing campaigns, maximizing your technology stack. Armed with those profiles, agencies can create automated and personalized messaging to guide citizens through a tailored information journey, ensuring they're exposed to the next best action, however they choose to engage. Over the life of a citizen's journey, our integrated solution leads to a holistic understanding of audiences' behavior across channels. Ultimately, this helps agencies make smarter decisions about their content and delivery.
BOMO is a full-service agency focused on creating elegant solutions to solve complex problems. At our core, we're dedicated to digital transformation for our clients, taking existing projects and ideas and developing them into fresh experiences that engage users. We build products for all manner of clients across the federal and commercial sectors, from award-winning apps like Pulse to high-performance news sites like Voice of America. Our dedicated teams focus on crafting the right solutions to meet every project's needs, whether that's high-availability decoupled Drupal solutions like NASA.gov or custom e-commerce solutions for USGS. Mobomo has the expertise to help your organization develop and innovate the platforms and products that drive your business. For the 8th year in a row, Mobomo has landed on the Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies list, and we don't expect that expansion to slow down anytime soon. If you're interested in becoming part of our team, check out mobomo.com/careers.
Thank you again to all of our sponsors. Our core sponsors, Acquia, Debug Academy, and Mobomo. Our coffee break and networking room sponsor, CTAC, and our captioning sponsor, Acquia. Additionally, we have a wealth of other contributors, supporters, trainers, and individual sponsors. Thank you to all of them for making this event possible. Now at this time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to our speaker today, Harish Rao.
See you from where I am, but thank you so much for taking the time today. My name is Harish Rao, and I'm the founder and CEO and lead data scientist for Interpersonal Frequency. We call our company IF for short. It's great to be here. Today's topic, as you know, what the COVID-19 means for tomorrow's digital infrastructure. This is very important to me and to us, I believe, both personally and professionally. And it's my sincere wish that the information, data, and the knowledge that we're going to be sharing with you is helpful in whatever you're doing in your positions. I believe we are behind with respect to our digital infrastructure, particularly here in the United States in government, but we can catch up. And the starting point for doing better is better information, good data, and asking the right questions. So I'm going to share a bunch of information, a bunch of data. Yes, there will be bar charts, but don't worry, I think you're going to find it very interesting about how things are going broadly with digital government and particularly online applications. First, let me tell you a little bit more about me, and then I'll tell you about where the data comes from, and then we'll move into the bulk of today's presentation about what it all means. So,
Harish, could I ask you really quickly, we're seeing your slides in reverse. It was okay during the test, but could you see if you could flip the visuals? Perfect, thank you. Keep going.
Great. We're going to keep moving then. It sounds like we've got that straight. So I'll start with telling you all a little bit about our firm, Interpersonal Frequency. We started IF, which is what we call our company for short, with the idea of using data, big data, to empower public organizations to do better online. I even started my PhD in computer science, which unfortunately I have not finished, but it's helped us dive deeper into big data. And a lot of the information that you're going to see here comes from our Voice of Citizen technology. That's the source for this data. I'll speak to that in a minute. But our commitment here is to data and making things better for the people living in this country. And it's led to some of the largest municipal government organizations in the United States. You can see some of their logos on your screen, trusting us with their digital needs. We've got a lot of cities, counties, public libraries, public utilities working with us. And we're really honored to serve all of them. A big reason we are so successful is because of our shared purpose, which you see on the left side of the screen here. I'm going to reference back to this. It's no joke that I and everyone that I work with shares this purpose to empower public organizations to be more relevant, accessible, in serving the needs of the public. So that's where we're starting from. And in terms of what we say with Drupal, my background with Drupal goes pretty far back. Many of you might remember Governor Howard Dean's campaign for president for the United States from over 16 years ago now, and particularly the Dean Scream. I remember more of the passion and the enthusiasm of many of the volunteers on the campaign and the energy and spirit of innovation. Governor Dean's campaign was also notable for using Drupal, of course, and I'll be honest in saying that in my role on that campaign as Director of Information Technology, Drupal was an ancillary part of my job back then. But after the campaign, I actually co-founded a digital firm, Focused. We, of course, started with using Drupal version 4 back then. And so Drupal has been a big part of my professional career for well over 17 years now. And I'm really grateful, thank you, for this community giving me a forum relevant to what I'm about to share with you. I'll also add that a lot of the work that we do today is, of course, Drupal powered. So let's move into some data. 5 billion visitors. I mean, this number is just so stunning. This is from usaanalytics.gov. 5 billion visitors to US federal government websites that are tracked in the past 90 days. That's a lot of visitors. And I'm starting with this statistic because it gives a bit of an idea of the staggering scale of digital government's reach just here in the United States. And I know we're talking to a lot of folks, not just here in the US, but beyond. But this number is, of course, focused solely on federal government websites. But wow, that number, 5 billion people. I actually can't think of that number because it's so large. And that's my point. There are an inordinate number each day of people living in your communities that need to interact with their government, whether it be federal, state, provincial, local, city government, county government, whether all of those things. And it needs to be done well online. And because of this staggering number of interactions, it's just hard to keep track of how much need there actually is, because these numbers are so big. The data I'm going to be sharing with you and some of the insights are also from a quite large data set. It's not quite as big as the 5 billion visitors to the federal government websites, but it's primarily derived from our Voice of Citizen analytics, which is in use by large counties, cities, small cities, big cities, municipal government organizations all across the United States. And it is primarily the United States. We can't claim to have those 5 billion visits, but because of our geographic reach, we have a quite good sample of government-related web platforms across many different government sectors, down from counties, cities, states, public libraries, as I mentioned, utility companies, ports, and a lot more. So the information I'm sharing with you comes from 2 distinct but related sets of data. The first information is survey-related information, and the second is behavioral data. More on what we're seeing in a couple of minutes, but on the screen right now, you see with our Voice of Citizen tool what kind of data we collect. But first, let me frame what's happening in the world. Right now, of course, the disruption that we are all facing has to be seen as an opportunity to do better. COVID has disrupted all of our lives, from the mundane little things to big societal patterns, and it has revealed how much we are dependent on digital services in every area of our lives. Clearly, those digital services and our overall digital infrastructure are not succeeding as they should be, and we have the data to prove it. Many of you watching this keynote presentation in the United States will recall seeing the photos of the long lines of people in front of their unemployment offices in their states and their local communities because people couldn't use online applications to fill out their unemployment forms. It's sad and it's true. Today, we're going to dig into the data behind what's happening there to see what it can tell us about the disruption and our digital infrastructure. First, we'll consider what the data we actually need to be looking at is. Next, we'll look at some trends from the past several months, 6 months or so. And finally, we'll talk about what we can do with the findings together. We can do better together. How we can take action in response to what may be a wake-up call for some of us. And here is our first wake-up call. We can do better. What we're looking at here is the overall success rate to complete the primary reason for visiting a government website. I will later make a case for why this metric, what we call the purpose of visit completion, is most important above all else for government sites. But the data here shows the struggle this pandemic has caused for visitors to government sites. More broadly, and perhaps more importantly, is the silent and ongoing, even before this pandemic, the ongoing epidemic of failure that, in my view, has become endemic to us, the community of digital government strategists. We have been, as digital strategists, as technologists, in my opinion, been far too unconscious of actual performance. The silent epidemic of failure has been ongoing for some time, and it's been exacerbated by the COVID crisis. The data you see on the screen is perhaps the only metric that, if you're listening to me today, I suggest you begin to use to judge your government's digital performance. Let's talk about the focus of this data. You are seeing an aggregation of city, county, municipal government information from the United States. Remember, when the pandemic hit, the people here in the US generally had to turn to their local governments, cities and counties, to understand what the lockdown or what the stay-at-home or shelter-in-place orders meant. For some of you, this data might be new. For others, you may have suspected it, given the comments or other research you may have been doing, trying to make things better. But nonetheless, this data stands. I think for some of you, it's hard to visualize what these numbers that I'm showing to you right now on this line chart mean. So let me give you the best example I could think of to illustrate the magnitude of failure. Imagine walking into a grocery store, looking for milk, or perhaps more apropos to this pandemic, toilet paper. And now imagine every other person walking into that grocery store cannot get that milk. It's either not there or it's impossibly hidden. Unfortunately, this situation was all too real, especially during the beginning of this pandemic. And the metaphor here is still, unfortunately, quite true with respect to digital users. We have become desensitized to this from my perspective. And I dare say we may not even be willing to ask the right questions to see how we're doing. I believe we're largely unconscious to this data because we are looking broadly at the wrong information. So please sit with me for a second. There might be some discomfort with what I'm sharing with you right now. I encourage you not to reject what I'm saying or reject this data and the information that I'm sharing, and resist the impulse to say, perhaps this isn't about me. We run a federal website or the such. Let's talk about how we can make this better. How can we make this a positive turning point? The COVID-19 global crisis is a terrible disaster. Over 200,000 people are dead, of course, here in the United States alone, with an untold economic impact on families across the United States. You know, I was listening to NPR the other morning, and they said by the end of this here in the United States, we might have even more than 400,000 people dying. That is terrible. The question that is on my mind is, from this global crisis, can we grow a movement for meaningful change? Or will we learn nothing? Or worst of all, slip further into dysfunction? Of course, many comparisons are being made regarding today's COVID-19 pandemic to the Spanish influenza epidemic from 100 years ago. Although I think that's a fine comparison, I suggest a different tragedy as a starting point on the conversation about transforming digital infrastructure for the government. Look at an example from history where transformational change came out of history. This is the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. It was a terrible disaster. 146 people died in 1911. It shocked the nation. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was a clothing factory in New York City, and something ignited the clothing in that factory. And at the time, there was no way for many of the workers to escape from that building due to a lack of fire exits and sprinklers and the such. But from this tragedy, a slow and steady movement for meaningful changes in labor laws and worker safety made its way in the United States. It's seen widely as a turning point in history. Can we do the same today? We can do better. We shouldn't be satisfied with a 61% success rate. How can we bring these numbers up? This has been a question we have been working on for some time and with some success. But first of all, we need to start looking at the right data. Too often, government web developers and web managers, in my perspective, buy into harmful myths that are distorting our view of where the true priorities may lie. I believe this is because the data, analytics, and even the tools that we use to judge our performance in the government digital sector are built for the commercial digital sector, driven by e-commerce. This is fundamentally incorrect. Making the right investments will require not only looking at data, but looking at the right data. Let's talk about that. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying here, I encourage you to go and take a look at your local county or city or municipal government budget, particularly if you're here in the United States with us. Go look at that budget, or go look at your local public library system's strategic plan. These type of documents that I'm referring to, they're often very long, hundreds of pages, and they're often in inaccessible PDF formats, but that's a different conversation. But dig in a bit. Take a look at the metrics that that particular government entity, their information technology, or their communications team is reporting as performance metrics. More often than not, you'll see that that department or that agency is explicitly tracking and attempting to improve the kinds of metrics that you see on the screen right now. Page views. We want more page views. We want more people coming to the site. Okay, not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But time on the site, longer the better. Not sure about that one. Bounce rate. These things might not make the most sense. If you could measure only one thing, it should be this: user success. Were you able to complete your purpose of visit today if you are a website user or a visitor? It's easy to measure. A 10-second survey could do this. Asking the question that I propose here with a yes or no answer is one simple way. There are more sophisticated ways to do this by tracking user behavior and endpoints, but we have a principle here at IF. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. In that vein, I believe it's better for us to start asking simple questions before we get too complicated. Let's dive a bit deeper now into COVID-related data with digital presences and what we're seeing. So let me tell you a little bit more about our COVID-19 data, where we're getting it from. So we're getting it from Voice of Citizen. It's a very powerful data platform. It allows us to combine survey-driven insight with digital behavioral data, including the types of data you're seeing on the screen right now. There's a unique ability to sample government website users across the United States. And now we're going to look at some trends that emerged from that data. So we'll dive in a little bit deeper now. The first trend: users need websites that are more relevant to their needs. Loads more people are going online to digital government. And heck, many county and city halls across the United States remain closed. It's making it difficult to do those things that are important to all of us: getting a marriage license, paying that property tax. Lots of people not being able to accomplish or even find what they need to do online. Government has started to adapt to bringing more service online, but we're lagging. There is absolutely surging interest. What you're seeing here, I'm going to give you a little bit of context, are survey responses. It's not the same thing as unique visitors, but it's a good way of measuring interest versus just traffic to digital government websites. And you can see it truly surged in the first quarter or so of this year as people were going online to figure out what this all meant for their day-to-day lives. We're focusing right now on counties and cities. We also have plenty of data for public libraries and public utilities, but municipal government organizations experience the biggest surge, at least at first. And it makes sense because they're delivering vital information. As I mentioned, stay-at-home orders and so forth, but it was unprecedented. I don't have the data for federal government organizations, but I suspect from some anecdotes that was the case for federal organizations as well. But at the same time, even though we had surging interest, we've had absolutely sagging success. User success rates have plummeted. We see the inverse of the previous graph. Sagging success. We've normalized this, unfortunately, and it's not okay. Something you don't see on this chart is that your visitors' satisfaction has gone down as well, but we'd expect that. There's more connected to the satisfaction is more connected to the overall sense of dissatisfaction with the pandemic reality. The fact remains, municipal web platforms are at the bottom of the pack, down to roughly 50% of visitors, of users able to complete their primary task. Let's keep moving. The second trend: users, visitors need digital platforms that are more responsive to their circumstances. Folks, I'm going to tell you some stuff right now that you've been hearing for years and you're probably trying to do. But I'm also going to hopefully disabuse you of some of the myths about how well we're doing. We need to prioritize accessibility, and we really do need to truly adopt a mobile-first approach. Success has rebounded with some substantial exceptions. As time has gone on, success rates have rebounded. Why is that? Well, departments, government departments that were closed or understaffed have begun to reopen. Of course, the people living in this country have adjusted to their new reality. And sites, digital platforms, government digital platforms, they've of course made changes to better serve their users. We've seen public libraries adapt to curbside pickup and going fully virtual with their operations. We've seen counties offer quite a few more services and permits online. The list goes on. But let me start by indicating one thing about the data that you're seeing right now. This is desktop only. And we chose to do that because I want to show you this next piece of data. Users had to shift away from mobile. For mobile users, it's a completely different story. This, what you're seeing right now, was by far the most surprising piece of information of data that we saw earlier during this pandemic. The total inversion for a few months of mobile versus desktop use. We went from near parity on mobile versus desktop to desktop taking precedence. Now, sure, some of this is going to be attributable to the fact that many were at home and attempting to complete government digital interactions on a desktop. But that's not sufficient to explain what's happening here. Mobile users are still struggling. Let me disabuse you perhaps of the notion that a mobile-first approach somehow implies successful mobile strategy. It does not. In fact, the data that I'm showing you shows the exact opposite. Many government digital platforms, websites have adopted mobile-first or mobile-responsive design, but it is not yielding results that make a difference for many users. The success rates on mobile devices lag behind desktop users, even though we know that being mobile-friendly is not optional. The truth is, what we're seeing supports the hypothesis that government websites are mobile-friendly in name only. It is still far too difficult to complete forms and transactions on a mobile device, necessitating using a desktop. Think of the implications for lower income users, those who need the assistance of the government right now the most. They are those users who do not have a fancy 27-inch screen at their home like I do, frankly, the kind of screen that I'm speaking to you from right now. These are the users who only have their cell phones with perhaps limited 3G internet plans to get them the help that they need. And to make it worse, we are seeing a further trending downward right now. The third trend, users need to be more accountable for vital communication and services. Core government tasks are amongst the least successful to begin with. We're going to show you some data about that here in a second. And they've seen the biggest slide since 2019. Let's show you what I mean. These are two extremely important areas that we track, and they're dragging down average success rates significantly, especially when compared to the 2019 success and satisfaction averages. The two areas where we see the biggest drop are contact complaints and requests. People with a problem can't get through. They're seeking information or they're seeking help, which is one of the primary use cases, of course, of almost any digital government platform. And the second big use case, of course, is applying or obtaining permits, licenses, and so forth. These services either aren't online or aren't working well online. You see significant percentage drops here. So we've talked about the three major trends. What does this data tell us about the problems and challenges we face? We have serious work to do. We can be more relevant, we can be more responsive, and frankly, we can be more accountable. And I think we can be more accountable by starting to look at the right sets of data. Change doesn't just happen. Not in the past, and certainly not today. Let's circle back to that Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire tragedy. Government didn't just roll over and change overnight. There was constant advocacy from the bottom up. There's an article that I'm excerpting from. I'm going to read it to you all. The death toll of 146 in the Triangle Fire did not match tragedies such as the 354 coal miners killed in West Virginia in 1908. But this fire sent out a shockwave that jolted the conscience of the city of New York. On April 5th, 1911, over 100,000 people joined in a procession up Fifth Avenue to express their grief, as another 400,000 watched. Out of that assembly emerged a committee on safety, which served as a clearinghouse of information on fire safety and, more importantly, became an effective political force. Here's another article. After the fire, the Ladies Garment Workers Union led a protest for higher wages. They called for better safety conditions like a sprinkler system in the factory and adequate fire escapes. And despite the protests of business and the imprisonment of many of the strikers, unions won. Folks, I'm not necessarily advocating for unionizing, but I am saying that change has to start somewhere, and it can start with us. We can do better. So what can we do to seize this opportunity, to make it a turning point? What can we do to make this a transformational moment in the work that we're doing? Well, I'm going to suggest to you three simple things to at least get us going. Three simple things that I need you to do. First, start asking questions. Let's stop taking the poor state of our digital infrastructure for granted. Question everything. Are we gathering the right data? What can we do better and how? Do we really know what our users need? You are already positioned, if you're listening to this conversation, this keynote today, to be part of the solution. So start some of these conversations with your colleagues, with your peers, with your managers. Second, commit to user success. Become an advocate for your users. Get to know who they are and what they might need. And importantly, use the right metric to gauge what success is. Don't kid yourself. User success is primary. And third, please commit to taking action now. Once you're committed to user success, take that action, whatever it is, to back up that commitment. Even a small change that you could make would address the issues we've looked at today. And in my estimate, at least, would likely, in many, if not most of your cases, cause positive outcomes for dozens, hundreds, and perhaps even thousands of your users. That's how big our work is. That's one of the things that I love about working with digital government. Everything that we do potentially affects and can help a lot of people very quickly. Please commit to doing one thing before the end of this year. Make that change. A small change, as I'm saying, will likely impact a lot of people. And share it. Use that hashtag, Drupal4Gov. Would love to hear what's going on. Now, if you're at a loss for what changes you can make, if you're not sure where to start, we have a checklist. Love our checklist. So no more excuses. Here's your punch list of very achievable action items. I am not going to go through all of these items here with you today. But what we will do is we will post our slides, and they have even more detail about everything that you're seeing on your screens right now, about each of these actions. We're going to post this on the Drupal GovCon website very soon. But broadly, on the left is stuff that you can do to improve what you already have with less resources. So with the resources that you have. And on the right, the upgrade and expand, they might require some additional resources. We think this is a great start. It is a data-driven approach to things. It's a great start if you're unsure how to proceed. And as I'm saying, there are many more details to each of these items that we'll make available to you. Let me tell you what I'm doing. Well, I've been saying here, we can do better. I'm trying to leave you with a lot of ideas. And believe me, I've got a lot more ideas and data that I can share with you. But now you know what I've asked you to do, and I'm going to share a little bit more what I'm doing. We're working on continuing to uphold our company's purpose. This is really important to all of us, trying to make organizations, public organizations, better. And we're also fighting for change. We can make immediate changes and improvements, but we can also work together with you all towards building a better digital infrastructure that we deserve. We need to start thinking more boldly about what that looks like. And of course, we're trying to leave you with at least a few dozen ideas to chew on. I invite you to follow me on Twitter. My handle's on the screen. I'm going to continue sharing some of our ideas and our research in the coming weeks. 1 year from now. So COVID, it's turned the world upside down overnight, but it's also proving we can make rapid changes and adaptations. Where will we be this time next year for our next Drupal GovCon? Will we be bemoaning the same old problems or making real progress towards solutions? You can help us make sure it's the latter. You can start small, but please just start. We can do better. We will do better. And thank you. I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to me. I invite your questions. Hopefully we'll hear from you. And before we take some questions, if we can just show the next slide briefly, we are providing a site improvement checklist with quite a bit of detail. This is just one example that you're seeing on your screens. We're going to make this available for everybody. And this is really following our data-driven approach. These kinds of changes will help you improve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful keynote. We will be in the Slack channel. So if you have any questions, please head on over to keynote/Friday in the Slack channel. And other than most people just saying how fantastic your presentation was, I don't see any questions yet. I have one. What do you think of the IDEA Act? Is it a step in the right direction? Helpful? Is it meeting its intended consequences?
I need a little bit more context. I don't know if I'm familiar with the IDEA Act. Yeah, sorry, folks. We just got the question about the IDEA Act. I'm not sure I'm familiar with it. If you could give me a little bit more detail around it, I'd be happy to try to react to it.
Yes, they are typing as we speak. Although I think I can actually ask the person to pop in. The new act passed by Congress that mandates mobile responsiveness with qualitative metrics.
Hey, it sounds great to me. I haven't read that act, and without knowing all the details, I think mobile responsiveness is key. But what our data is telling us is that broadly, it's not that folks aren't doing mobile responsiveness, right? We're seeing most digital government at least moving in that direction. And they know those who are not yet mobile responsive, frankly, know at a level that they're behind the curve. But what we're seeing with the data is that even though they are putting things, making them mobile responsive, it's almost in name only. And by that, I mean mandating mobile responsive isn't sufficient. Now, the second part of what I heard is that there are metrics to potentially measure that the outcomes there. And without knowing what those metrics are, it's hard for me to respond. But absolutely, I think that could be a step in the right direction. That's a great idea. And obviously, I need to see what that IDEA Act is about.
So we have actually someone posted the IDEA Act so you can have an idea of what IDEA is. I don't see any other additional questions, but a lot of folks who really enjoyed your presentation and your keynote. So at this point, what I think we're going to do is open this up to the keynote-Friday, and I'll invite Harish Rao to join us there, and folks can ask additional questions. And that would conclude our keynote. You have anything else you'd like to just say before we head over there?
No, it's great. It's a pleasure talking to you all, and I'm looking forward to more of your questions, hopefully in that Slack channel and maybe over Twitter as well. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. I look forward to continuing this important topic.
Again, I want to say thank you so much. As a labor blogger and labor advocate, I've really enjoyed your use of Triangle Waste Factory Fire in this. It's been pretty awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.